Hello, welcome to Cultic Cube, your source for Magic the Gathering theory for cube players and cube curators. Today I'd like to explain the value of a card that is, I believe, underappreciated. Bramble Sovereign. Our topic is inspired by a question from a viewer. Before looking at your list, I had never heard of Bramble Sovereign. Do you like it? Should I be cubing it? Thank you for the question, Golden Fang. And the answer is yes. I think you should seriously consider cubing the card, if you are running at a size above 360, and if you are not at vintage power level. It may sound like a lot of hedging, but I think the card is not only sweet, but is actively good, and it can rumble very successfully at legacy power and lower. I completely understand the fact that Golden Fang has never heard of this card. It has comparatively little traction in the cube community. If we take a look at CubeTutor's reporting of cards ranked by inclusions in individual cubes, we find that Bramble Sovereign definitely does not break into the top 10 most popular green 4 CMC cards. Harmonize is the green 4 that appears with the greatest frequency. It finds a home in more than 18,000 cubes. We must search far down the list to find Bramble Sovereign, who is the 178th most popular green 4, appearing in just less than 800 cubes. One explanation for the card's lack of popularity is the fact that it hails from a supplemental set, a so-called innovation product, which creates cards that were not legal in the standard environment of the day, and hence made less of a splash in the general Magic community than does the typical set. Battle Bond is less than a year old as of the time of this recording, which also affects the card's adoption rate. Finally, and probably most importantly, the card has not yet been featured in a Magic the Gathering Online cube. These cubes are often the gateway to people's experience of cube as a format, and many people begin designing their own cubes by using MTGOs as a point of departure. I am here to tell you that Bramble Sovereign is worth a test in your environment. As cube designers generally agree, green 4s are weak on the whole. Of course, part of the problem is not the cards themselves, but the fact that mid-range strategies tend to suffer in environments that do not take pains to groom mid-range to be competitive. But that is a different conversation. Here is the list of green 4s that I run in my 450 card legacy cube, and here is how I rank the top 5 green 4s. By far and away the best of these is Natural Order. This is the only card on this list that I would consider first picking under normal circumstances. I have Bramble Sovereign as the 5th best card. It may sound like faint praise to call the card pretty good among an unexceptional field, but I do put Bramble Sovereign higher than most of her creature peers, including many old chestnuts of cube, such as Master of the Wild Hunt and Oracle of Moldiah. Let's talk about Bramble Sovereign's floor and average use cases for a moment before moving on to some of the sweet interactions that it enables. At base, Bramble Sovereign is a 4/4 for 4. It fails the proverbial Vindicate test, of course, though it passes the Lightning Bolt test. And a Rumbling Baloth that you hope to cast often on turn 3, given that you're green, does as good a job as most of any of its peers at stonewalling aggro, and it does a better job than some, such as Oracle of Moldiah or Elvish Piper. Bramble Sovereign is a mana sink, which fact I don't want to overemphasize, as I think too much is made of mana sinks, a value that is often carried over from retail limited, and is less important in most cube environments. Still, sometimes you have mana to burn, and this card represents a fine place to put it. It creates a form of card advantage when it copies, and this is a big deal, as green often struggles to generate card advantage. Thus, even in a pretty poor case, if you are hellbent, that is, if you have an empty hand, and you top deck a mana dork, then, for the low, low price of 1 GG, you can buy 2 mana dorks. That may not sound amazing, but nevertheless, 2 is better than 1. At any rate, let's move on to some slightly more exciting examples. If you're like me, when you see a clone effect, you start dreaming of enters the battlefield triggers. Bramble Sovereign doubles your ETBs on creatures. I selected 3 CMC creatures, just because you can curve nicely into these. Play Bramble Sovereign on 4 mana, next turn make your land drop, and then play your 3 CMC card plus the 2 for Sovereign's ability. Bramble Sovereign fits nicely into a few popular archetypes as well. It is great in a token-based strategy, inasmuch as it makes tokens. This will often be a Selesnya, that is green-white, or junk, green-white-black, deck in my experience. Also, populating the board with additional creature tokens plays very nicely into aristocrats and stacks decks that are powered by sacrificing one's own creatures for value. Aristocrats traditionally functions in Rakdos, Orzhov, or some combination of those white, black, and red colors. It can be fun to explore different space with the archetype thanks to Bramble Sovereign. Evoke is a mechanic that plays incredibly well with our card. Just imagine evoking your Muldrifter for 3 in its divination mode, paying 1 and a green extra, and then drawing 4 cards, and still getting your Windrake in the bargain. Similarly, evoking a Shriekmaw for a total of 4 mana buys you 2 terrors in addition to the creature. Of course, you can still hardcast your Muldrifter and pay the extra 2 to get 2 Muldrifters if you have the mana to spare. Finally, Bramble Sovereign loves cheat-into-play mechanics. As Bramble Sovereign does not require a creature to be cast from hand in order to get its trigger, take Sneak Attack. Of course, Sneak Attack is good with a ham sandwich. But you know what it's even better with? A ham sandwich and a side of Bramble Sovereign. Imagine paying 1 RG to cheat in 2 fatties with some sweet ETB, and at the end of the turn getting to keep one of them. Of course, Sovereign works with Reanimate, Tinker, and so forth, but here I've only listed cheats that you get multiple uses out of. It should not be difficult to conceive of situations where Recurring Nightmare, for instance, sets up consistent recursive value loops, but you can imagine how this is made still easier with the Bramble Sovereign in play. Some final cautions about Bramble Sovereign. First, it is generally incorrect to play off-curve in order to get Sovereign value. Think of Bramble Sovereign as adding Kicker to all of your creatures. It is awesome when you can kick the card, but do not delay your development in order to reap hypothetical future rewards. Second, as the card itself says, it cannot copy tokens. This is probably an obvious point, but it's worth underlining, I think. Third, most legends interact poorly with Sovereign. There are possible exceptions, such as when a legend has an ETB that is valuable in duplicate. But the point is that if you clone a legend, you will have to choose 1 copy to preserve and 1 copy to destroy, thanks to the legendary rule. Finally, if you clone a creature that has X in its mana cost, X is considered to be 0. So under most circumstances, the clone will immediately die. In sum, if you have never played Bramble Sovereign, I recommend you give it a chance to see whether your group enjoys the play patterns that it generates. Its floor, a 4-mana 4/4, isn't totally embarrassing, and its ceiling is quite high. My group has loved discovering sweet interactions with the card. Thanks for watching. Special thanks again to Golden Fang for the question that inspired the episode. See links in the video description to resources mentioned in the video. Please like, subscribe, and share the content if it is of use and interest to you. And please do keep the comments coming. I appreciate your questions and criticisms, which are fueling content such as this. Check out the channel for more cube theory and strategy. See you next time.